Welcome to 90 Days to Recover with Dan Callahan. I want to welcome you to your 90 Day to Recover journey. Today's topic is alcoholism and addiction. Alcoholism is progressive, chronic, fatal, and primary. I like to say it's alcoholism and not alcoholism. The term progressive means increasingly worsening. Chronic, simply that it never goes away, and fatal is death, or worse yet, the walking death of wet brain. I like to use the analogy of a railroad track as the way to define alcoholism and addiction. You see, we all have a lifespan from our date of birth to our date of death. So here's the analogy. Alcoholism is like a railroad line, where there are tracks, those are our daily lives, and then there are stations. I call those C's, significant emotional events, and the physical aspects of abuse and addiction. To put this into perspective, let's look at progressive, whereas our C's become worse and worse, and they become more and more frequent. When we think about chronic, we think about the term control. No matter how hard we try to control or what we change, like I'll only party on the weekends, or I'll have a designated driver and I won't drink and drive. No matter what methods we use to control, it simply doesn't work. That proves to us that it's chronic and it's just not going to go away no matter how hard we try. So when it comes to recovery, and we look at the railroad line, here's the story. We could get off at any one of the stations. So when any one of these significant emotional events occur, or some kind of physical aspect, like we end up in jail or divorced or fired, any one of these C's, any station, we could get off and get on a new road to recovery. Really sounds like a simple process, just get off and stop. But one of the challenges that we face is what I call the contradictions, and that is our minds search for meaning in everything. So when we define alcoholism, our mind will challenge that definition, how it applies to us personally, based on what our conditions are, and then we try to prove how that is not true to us. This is really an insidious process. Let's talk about alcoholism and addiction as primary conditions. Now, normally when we think of primary, we think of first. But that's not what we're talking about here. It just means this, that they are standalone diseases. They do not rely on any other conditions to manifest as a disease. Let me make a suggestion here as well. If the word or the term disease really annoys you or bothers you, I want you to just put that to the side for now, and let's just think of it as a condition or an issue or a challenge. Let's now talk about the concept of a primary condition and what this means to us. I really believe that if you get this concept, you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache down the road. So let me quickly explain the concept and the ramifications. I suggested earlier that primary is not first in this situation. What it is that it stands alone. In other words, alcoholism or addiction is a primary condition that does not need other primary conditions such as chronic pain, depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma, or any other condition in order for it to exist. Let me tell you why this is so important to grasp. Remember earlier I spoke about that our brain or our mind search for meaning in all things? Well, as our brain is searching for meaning, it's looking for the contradictions. It's also looking for the why. Why do I have this? Normally what we do is we look at, well, I'm depressed, so I drank. I was traumatized as a kid, so I drank. The important aspect of knowing this or recognizing that these are all separate primary conditions is very simple. My mind starts to think that if I clear up the trauma, or if I'm no longer depressed, or if I'm no longer anxiety ridden, I can drink normally or use drugs normally again. I have to be honest, most people go through this. Most people think this way. Most people want to find out why and clean it up. But the truth is, it just holds us back from truly recovering. The second thing, like I mentioned before, is the contradictions. In other words, we look at it and we go, hey, I was never traumatized, or I'm not depressed. And what we do is we use that to say, I don't have a problem. I was just unlucky. I got a DUI. My wife divorced me. My husband divorced me. Just all situations. We use these situations as excuses to continue on our path. We simply just try to change or make a new strategy to keep ourselves from slipping back into the addictive path. This leads me to my definition of alcoholism and addiction. It's more like a question. Here's the question. If I pick up a drink or a drug, can I safely predict the outcome? Think about that. If my answer is no, then I must make the decision to change. If I make a decision to change, I need to know that change requires action. See, the root of the word decide means to cut off any other option. The suffix CIDE, side, means to cut off. Homicide, cut off life. Suicide, cut off my own life. So to decide means to cut off all other options. Now, there are 4 aspects of the decision-making process. The first is, I actually have to decide to do it. I have to decide that abstinence is the best plan for me. Then I have to commit to that decision. And then third, I have to be in congruence with that decision. So let me ask you this. Is alleviating alcohol or drugs that will alleviate the challenges and the situations that I face in my life, is that in congruence with living a healthy and prosperous, sober life? The answer is yes. And finally, I need to take action. See, there are 2 types of people when it comes to taking action. The first type is they need to feel good to take action. They're the ones, well, I didn't really feel like going to the meeting tonight, or I didn't really feel like going to my therapist, I didn't really feel like reading, or I didn't feel like journaling. See, those people find it difficult at best. The second type of person is they take action and feel good about the results afterwards. So no matter how they feel beforehand, they take action and then feel good about their results. Now the truth is, look, we're all in aspect number 1 at times, but we have to move to number 2 and stay there as long as we can. And when we catch ourselves falling back into aspect number 1, move back to aspect number 2. So what is the decision? The decision is complete abstinence. That may sound like a real daunting task. You may even say to yourself, do I really want to do this? Do I really want complete abstinence? Well, here's one method to help you make that decision. I call it weighing it out. See, Ben Franklin, we all know who Ben Franklin is, he taught us to weigh things out when he was faced with a major decision. So what we need to do is look at all the positives and all the negative aspects of not drinking alcohol or not using drugs. But we have to be real cautious to take into account the weight of every single aspect or feature that we're looking at. Because you got to remember this, that some weights are 5 pounds and some weights are 25. In other words, maybe alleviating some of my anxiety is a 5-pound weight, whereas going to jail, DUI, or these other real major issues are 25-pound weights. So we have to look at both sides, pros and cons, weigh them out, and then make the decision for total abstinence. Here's something that I know though. People make their decision to change for one of 2 reasons. One is to run away from pain, or 2 is to head towards pleasure. But a decision that is major like this one, you really need to have both of these going. You have to look at it and say, look, I don't want to be who I have become. I want to be who I am becoming. The whole idea of recovery is really simple. And that is to move through the process step by step. The process we just discussed right now is really about the admission process, learning, finding out what's going on, admitting it, and now making the decision to move on. The next step is really the clearing process. Let's clean up the dirty laundry and get ready to move on. We want to then set goals, define our purpose, and learn our principles for living. We'll learn how to forgive others, forgive ourselves, ask for forgiveness, make amends for our actions, and then move on in the recovered life. As you go through these series, you'll learn that there's a difference between recovery and a happy recovery. I wish you well, stay focused, and let's get her done. Go, go, go.